Welcome to Brew with Miss Baritone. I'm your host, Chicky Baritone, and this is my podcast. I'm gonna give it to you all black, no creamer, no sugar, no honey. So join me as I brew up some life-giving conversations with some dope people. Welcome to Brew with Miss Baritone. I am very excited about my next guest. She's a boss in her own right. She is a CEO and editor of Resilient Magazine, a phenomenal motivational speaker and author, and she has a podcast. Y'all give it up for Miss Teia Acker Moore.
Yes, I was just about to say, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about you, lady. Welcome to the podcast.
Yes, thank you so much.
I am so honored to have you on. And Teia, you may or may not remember this, but we were both on a TV segment years ago. That's how I first met you.
Now TV, Now Television.
Now
Yes.
Television in Anderson.
Yes.
And gosh, it seems like it was like many, many moons ago. But even then, I was like, she's a quiet storm. That was my thought. I said, she's a quiet storm.
Wow.
And when I said that with all sincerity. I did not know a lot about you until I started following you. And that ignited my thoughts. Because, you know, your posts are so relational, relatable, and they also sucker punch you too.
Those are for me then. Those are notes to self.
So if you felt the blow, trust me, we felt it 20 times over.
Yes, yes.
But I have loved watching the work that you're doing with your business.
Thank you.
And I really have to take it back. Resilient, number one, to call your magazine Resilient Magazine, the word resilient is not an easy word
Absolutely.
to live through. Was any of your life the motivating factor behind you calling your magazine Resilient Magazine?
Absolutely. So to backtrack a little,
Sure.
I started the brand Teia Acker Resilient. And of the brand, the magazine came. So
Okay.
yes, my personal life has been the epitome of the word resilient. I have had to bounce back and weather so many things, but I realized that it wasn't just me.
Yeah.
So when you were talking about my posts, a lot of times those are notes to self. And then I realized 200 comments later that I'm not the only person, which makes me feel so much better.
Sure.
Because I hate feeling like, you hate feeling like, why is this happening to me?
Right.
And then you realize it's not just happening to you, it's
yeah.
happening everywhere. It's happening to so many different people. So with that, I didn't want to just stay with the negative.
Yeah.
I took so many loss coming out of it till I was just like, yeah, I'm resilient. But to really be honest, a friend of mine coined that to me on my 3rd anniversary of my first business.
Wow.
So when she said it, I was just like, oh, okay. You give people the microphone and you're like, what? I'm resilient. Where'd you get that from? But then after a while, life just started happening. And it was like, I went from being unemployed with 2 children.
Yeah.
I came out of a divorce. I had lost one of my parents, my father. And it was just like anything that could happen. People were talking about 2020 and I was like, no, 2013 was my pandemic because I was dealing with something. But I didn't want to stop there with just me.
Sure.
So I decided to do the magazine because I grew up with, of course, Ebony, Essence, all of those
Yes.
wonderful publications.
Yeah.
But I was like, God, what about that woman that nobody sees, but she's making it happen every day?
Yes.
Like nobody gives her a pat on her back. There isn't a Hallmark card with her face on it. And so I wanted the everyday woman, and not to minimize her being an everyday woman, but I didn't want people to feel like you got to be a celebrity to be seen. Or you got to do negative things or put yourself out there, change your body, change who you are just to be celebrated. That's unfair.
Right.
So I said, you know what? Let's start telling these stories about women who are overcoming barriers. And so the Resilient magazine came as a result of that. And oh my God, like I just had no idea that that's what people wanted.
Oh my God. And I'm going to tell you, wanting is correct because it's still so many ceilings that no matter how they go from 12 feet down to 8,
Right.
we're still not breaking them.
Right.
We're still
Right.
not getting through them.
Right.
When I think about stats, like even there was a stat out there that talked about just even the number of African American CEOs, like around 9% to still 86% being white, around 9 being black.
Absolutely.
Like even with all of the acceleration of advancement in technology, accessibility to information, we are still at a disadvantage.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, you and I both probably can sit here all day and talk about all of the women empowerment events that we have gone through, and we were empowered in the moment.
Yes.
But we leave out of them, and it's like, what now?
Right.
What do you, or how do you coach your clients through getting past the empowerment zone? Good speech, good workshop, good conference.
Right. So I go by this mantra of consistency brings currency and repetition brings revenue. And I don't really mean that in the financial sense. I mean
Sure.
that in general.
good.
Because I have went to empowerment conferences that have been on fire for those 2 hours. And then when I walk outside, reality hits me and I'm like, well, wait. So, because they have you feeling so good that you're thinking life is, even with church, it makes you
That's
feel
true.
like life is going to change for you the very next moment. But what I tell my daughter and my bonus daughters is that, as a woman, as a Black woman, we're always going to be number 4 in this thing. And so we have to propel ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to, look past the moment and think long term. How can I win long term, and not even winning for me?
Yes.
What can I sacrifice in this moment so that I can help you or
Yes.
someone else that's coming behind me?
Yes.
So I'm not really, quote unquote, get in the bag for myself.
Yeah.
It's for everyone that's coming behind me. And what I tell my clients is be as transparent as you possibly can.
Yep.
And be your true authentic self. I know when as women, we love ourselves. When we look in the mirror, we have the highest self-esteem when we wake up in the morning. And then when we grab our phone and we go to social media, we're defeated. Because what's being projected and what's being told is that, okay, corporate America, to be successful, you look like this. You're a Caucasian woman and you are successful. You have 10 degrees and you're climbing the corporate ladder.
Yep.
For us, it's no. Forget all that education. Just change your nose, change your face, change your body, do all of these things. And if you don't fit into that, you're lost. So what about me and my 3 degrees and my $79,000 in student loan debt that has yet to be erased? I don't know why they can't find my account. But it's okay. But that is the reality.
Yeah.
And so now a woman who felt good about herself, who felt good about her natural hair, who felt good about, her ideals and her attire that she chose, is now second guessing herself because you just skipped over me because I didn't have on red bottoms, or you just walked past me because I didn't have the look. It's so unfair. And so it's hard to tell someone that their ideas and, doing this and doing that is going to help propel them in life, because life doesn't see them as that. Life sees them as, this is the box I want you in. And if you don't want to stay in this box, then you fail.
Exactly. And I mean, and associations are truly very important. And one of those things that people really don't talk about or give it the credit that it needs, especially when the associations represent your character.
Right.
I have all of this knowledge, I have these degrees, but who am I connected to?
Right.
And so I think, while this stage and era of the young generation feel like, they have the money, they have the access, and they don't need anybody. They're in their phones. It's just communication and connection. If I can't pick it up and do it and multitask, then, I don't want to do it.
Right.
And what I am trying to instill in mentors or mentees is that, with our young people, what they call in old school connections, it's going to be your bread and butter.
Absolutely.
You got to get in the face of people. You have to
Absolutely.
be able to communicate what you want. You got to have a network. We were not
Absolutely.
created to be on an island. We were created to need people. So
Right.
how do you go about with someone of your caliber? Do you have mentors? Do you have people that guide you
Right.
through all of the different business ventures that you have?
So I do, and I think it's important to have multiple. I don't go to my spiritual mentor for business advice. That's not
good.
what she does.
Yep.
And so I have multiple mentors, but for me, being a mentor is not making it and getting $1 million and now I'm like, oh yeah, I want to follow you. Mentors
Right.
to me are the longevity of how they
Yes.
have obtained their success. Some of my mentors I have never met. I follow them through this journey.
Yeah.
I follow them on social media. I follow them on their websites. I follow them. And for me, we have to be careful with that because sometimes we pick mentors based on popularity, but that person doesn't necessarily resonate with what you're doing or what you're trying to do.
Right.
And you find yourself having an identity crisis because you're trying to be this person
Yeah.
that you're not going to be because that's really not who you should be tied to, but it's what's popular. For me, like I said, I explain to my kids all the time that the cookie cutter world that we have put them in is not going to work for them long term.
That's
You know,
good.
and you mentioned something that was very key to me. They have the communication, but there is no connection. There's no connectivity in what they're doing. The language has changed. You know, I remember reading something in my son's cell phone and it was like LMK. And I was like, LMK. And I literally Googled it and it was
Yeah.
like, oh, let me know. And I was like, well, why didn't he say, let me know? And I realized that in their world, that made sense. But that's how if you keep communicating that way,
Yeah.
when you get into the real world, that's how you're going to communicate
Yeah.
with your boss.
Right.
You're eventually going to slip up and send a LMK email or LMK text, or you're going to have an LMK attitude because you're cutting corners.
Yeah.
And they call everything that we do old school. And trust me, when I was their age, anything that my mom said, I just felt like, you know, she had a talk with Jesus or that was her military mind.
Right.
But the older I got, I was just like, oh my God.
It makes sense.
Now I know why you were holding these conversations in the kitchen by yourself. Like
Wow.
it makes sense. But we don't realize that because we have conformed to their world.
Yep.
It's almost like the generations are getting shorter and shorter in age groups. So now what used to be 25-year gaps are turning into 15, 13, 15. So we're pretty much growing up together.
Yep.
So there are no boundaries.
That's good.
You know, like what I used to be able to do as an adult, now I'm like, wait a minute, why are me and the kids doing that together?
Wow.
Like, okay, so one of us shouldn't be here. And, you know, we feel like it's not
feel like
us.
it's us.
'cause we
Right,
can't. So, you know, it's just so different. But if I can just get them to understand that writing is going to benefit you in the long run.
Yes, ma'am.
Reading out loud.
Yes.
Reading without being told to read. Grabbing a book, you know, staying in the classes that are going to challenge you versus the easy ones that you feel like, oh, I can just get a 100 in this. Because, now it's beneficial in this moment.
Yeah.
But long term, you know, and so it's hard so instead of saying it now, I just show them. Like,
Absolutely.
I show my kids, I show my mentors, my friends.
Yes.
Because sometimes we're just stuck in these spaces where this is where I'm comfortable, but you have to be uncomfortable in order to ensure that you're going to continue to be comfortable. But no one wants to do that middle
no.
piece. Oh no, it's microwave all day long. No one's stirring grits anymore and you know, cutting it on low and doing all that. No, honey, give me a bowl, pour the packet in, put it in the microwave, press 20, and that's it.
That's very, very true.
Because you still get the same results.
Right.
But you don't get the same results.
Right.
Because you know what grits taste like when you had them in the microwave versus when they were sitting on the stove with love.
Oh my.
You know the
and
difference.
then they're so tricked in thinking it's the same thing. And two, like you said, showing versus telling. Because these kids are a show me what you're working with kind of a crowd.
Right.
But there are just things about what we deem to be old school really isn't. It is a revolving cycle.
Right.
And I have taught my mentees, and I thank God for those moments where he actually takes my lesson and make it real time for me to see it. Because some seeds, you don't get to experience the harvest of them immediately.
Right.
And then there are seeds as a mother, you're going to be able to see later on in life. And you and daddy can be back like,
Right.
There you go. And, you know, and you have to just be okay with that. You know, I know we do. We want our kids and our, you know, our family to get these things immediately, but they
Right.
don't.
They don't.
But yeah, that cycle is wicked. And you try to avoid kids from understanding that what you're learning and what you're going through is not new.
Right.
Some things are not new under the sun. So when you decided to go into business full time and you gave your business the name Ebony and Ivory,
Right.
tell me the story and inspiration behind that.
So, to be honest, I was working my 9 to 5.
Okay.
But I had been a marketer for them, and you know how the ebbs and flows of business go. And this was my 3rd time being laid off from them. And you would ask yourself, well, why did you go back 2 times? Because the first time should have been enough. But, you know, I was making good money.
Yeah.
And that's what I went to school for. Like, I'm really trying to justify spending all my time in college.
Yeah.
And so it made sense. And a young lady and I, she was a Caucasian woman, and we started doing things within the company that we were like, wait a minute, company not paying us for this. So we need to do something outside of the company, and the company can pay us to do this. So we started out together. Of course, I was going to be Ebony and she was going to be Ivory.
Wow.
And she ended up, she was diagnosed, but not confirmed diagnosed. And then she just stepped away for a little while. And what I did was I really believed in it. So I said, I'm going to go ahead and do all the legal paperwork, everything. And when the year mark came around, I said, okay, do you want to come back in? At this point, I'm willing to let you in free. 3 years went around and I'm like, okay, this is how much it would cost you to come back to be Ivory. Because at this point, I'm Ebony and Ivory, you know, and I'm just like, okay, well, you know, if people ask me, why are you Ebony and Ivory? Then, you know, my brother came up with this really cheesy thing. You can just say, you're putting black words on white paper. And I was like, that's really lame. But I'll keep that in the back of my mind. So here we are. It's getting ready to be 10 years in July. July 25th will be 10 years. So there is no coming back into it. I always acknowledge her on every anniversary because I started out with her and this was going to be our brainchild. But, you know, 10 years down the road is, you know, I'm the one keeping up with all the real stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, here we are. But for that, the business itself was supposed to help other people start their businesses. So it came out of an angry place. Like, I'm tired of y'all laying me off. You know what? I'm going to help everybody be an entrepreneur. I'm going to get everybody out of here first. And I'm going to help everybody be an entrepreneur. So we had the tagline, let us help you get noticed. We did resumes for people to go from that job to another job. We did interviewing skills, workshops, and then it turned into something else where we were doing printing, banners, flyers, websites, because the goal was to help people maintain for themselves. Like having a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old and no income was like, really? I got to do something.
Sure.
So because I had already been doing these things for them for free, quote unquote, under the title, now it's like, yeah, I'm going to do this for myself.
Awesome. Now, when you ventured into your entrepreneurship world, did you hold on to corporate fully? Did you let corporate fully go? Or did you hold on for a little while and do the entrepreneurship until you felt comfortable to jump completely?
So I held on like all the way to last year, to be honest. And the reason being is I know how glamorous people make entrepreneurship be. Like, oh my God, just be an entrepreneur. But if you don't have the capital, don't do that. So, you know, it's not, you know, and it's funny because depending on who you're talking to, they play off the words. Well, if you're not working as an entrepreneur full time, it's just a hobby, it's just a hustle. You define what it is. But if I can use my 9 to 5 to funnel my 5 to 9, then that's what I'm gonna do. Like, unless you're gonna have a telethon and bring me some real money, I don't listen to stuff like that. Like, I'm a huge proponent of let me just make it happen for me. Because hearing things and seeing people like, just quit your job. And I'm like, oh, Georgia Power's not gonna accept that.
That's right.
You know, so I had to do what I had to do. Luckily, I say up until last year because my husband, when we got married almost 5 years ago, it's careful. You have to be careful who you attach yourself with. Association brings on assimilation. He was like, I see what you're doing. So knock out whatever it is you got to knock out, and you can do it full time. So that gave me, and then I got scared. Then I'm like, wait,
hold up. Give me a minute.
Right. I wasn't expecting somebody to come along.
Look here, that green light is like, it's time to go. It's green light. Let's go put it in yellow.
Right. But that was motivation.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it also was a safety net to say, okay, if you jump out here and it doesn't work, I got your back.
Yeah.
But it also said, if you jump out there and it doesn't work, then you can always go back. At the end of the day, I still had the experience and the degrees to go work for someone. But I wasn't going to allow someone to have me overwork for them and have nothing for myself.
That's
my
good.
mentor is huge on saying bill it for your last name. So I'm sitting here thinking like, wow, I made this company $500,000, and as soon as I had one bad month, they were like, I'm sorry, we got to lay you off. So you know what? How about I make myself $500,000? If I have one bad month, I still got $500,000.
No doubt.
Right? So it just put me in the frame of mind that I had to regroup and figure out, if I decide to go back to a 9-to-5, this is what it has to look like.
No doubt.
Like I probably can only do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
I'll be real bougie then. So it's like, you know what? We don't need you. Remote, 2020 has spoiled a lot of people like this. It's the acceptance, because you realize what your worth is. And you have to realize that before you're 67 and a half or 65 or whatever the age is. You have to realize.
They keep moving that thing up. By the time your kids get to a point of retiring, 65 has gone to 67, and it's probably going to be at 70.
Right. Well, they're going to be working that anyway, because their quality of life, the things that they have to have, they're really going to be like 80. Yeah. See, we're so simple. We're so simple. Once you get to a certain age in life, you're like, I don't care about that.
That's crazy.
But their life is so, floating on skates until they're gonna, and that's what makes the age go up. If I think about my grandmother who passed when she was 90, she was very simple. She had more money than anybody, but she was very simple. But as the generations came, we got so complicated. We want this, we want that, we want to, make it look like this, that, and other, and you got to work for that.
And you're exactly right. And it's funny because I really have embraced, as I've gotten older, minimalism. And every year when I start throwing clothes out that I ain't worn in a year, those bags become less and less.
Yes.
And that is telling me you now are finally understanding the value of where that dollar really should be going, really investing more into, assets and not liabilities, so I'm seeing a representation of that in how many clothes I'm giving back.
Right.
And unfortunately, Americans, we are, that's why, storage units and stuff like that are big businesses, because we're hoarders and people are making money off of us buying stuff that we don't use, which is sad. If you count up the amount of money that you put into things you purchase that you may wear 1-2 times tops, that can be the down payment on land or an apartment building, that we can see from here. Having 20 units and retiring off of that. We have to start thinking in that way. Has it been challenging for you, especially when you are migrating through a generation you grew up in and raising kids in this generation? Do you push entrepreneurship for them? Or do
Originally,
you not?
I did not. Originally, I was like, no, you're going to college, military, or technical. You're going to do something.
Yeah.
But what I have discovered was I was becoming my parents. And I didn't like that feeling. My son loves instruments completely. And he loves making beats. He loves being a producer. And whatever that looks like for him, I want that for him. Because I remember when I wanted to do something and my mom was like, no. And my dad was like, I want you to be a nurse. And I'm like, no, but if I see blood, I'm going to pass out. But I want you to be a nurse, And so I try to push them. My daughter likes dance. I want to push them in the genre of where they want to go, whether it's in college, out of college. Of course, I want them to understand that you just can't be 30 and not have a plan.
Right.
You got to make a plan. And we're going to stick to the plan, because if your plan doesn't work, then mama's plan is the plan.
Yeah.
But I don't want them to be so far embedded into the tradition of things, that it's not enjoyable.
Yeah.
I'm actually not working in either of my degrees.
Really?
And so,
But that's common. A lot of people don't realize that it's a common thing. Like, it's not anything weird.
But it's expensive.
It's
if
very
someone paid
expensive.
for it, then it'd be like, great, I just really wasn't feeling that. But now I'm like, but for them, I don't want that. Of course, college will be set up for them, but if that's not what they want to do, then let me hear what you want to do. You can't, because my son used to tell me he wanted to be a gamer. And I was like, no, that's not really what I had in mind, until I went on YouTube and found out how much money one person was making from just analyzing video games and playing them. So then I was like,
that's all software or software programming.
Right,
software
give it a
engineering.
title and it works. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then getting into that industry to see how, because I always tell young people too, don't wake up every day, go to work and not retain, not learn off of their dime. Learn off their dime.
Right.
And make sure whatever your passion is, that you incorporate learning off their dime into your business.
Absolutely.
And they should be moving parallel. Absolutely. And when you're ready, jump. But but have a time frame and timeline, because that investing in yourself is never going to not happen. It's going to get more expensive when you do it on your own dime in the entrepreneurship world, because you're going to need to.
Absolutely.
But if you are working, take advantage of that opportunity to learn off someone else's dime.
Absolutely.
Yes. How can people get in contact with you and follow you? You have a podcast out there, which I love the concept of pouring back into small businesses and entrepreneurs. Tell how people can get in contact with you to follow you, from your podcast to your business. And I just think that the work you're doing is amazing. I have been a fan from afar for so many years. And I just appreciate you being authentic and you putting your pain out there, because your pain does have purpose, and you have been able to live off the purpose of your pain.
Yes.
So tell people how they can get in contact with you.
Well, they can download the Get Notice podcast.
Nice.
And it's also a Resilient Living podcast too.
Oh,
yes.
Nice.
Twofold.
Okay.
So the Get Notice podcast, it helps with the entrepreneurship journey, talking about different things that people will not tell you when you're starting out. But then the Resilient Living is just talking about the personal things. I really didn't, people were emailing me and asking me personal things on the business side, and I was just like, okay, let's separate that. So, and I appreciate it, but I also give them another outlet to safely share. And then of course they can follow me at Teia Acker Resilient on all social media, Ebony and Ivory Professional Services on all social media. And then Twitter, all that good stuff. Just, of course, the magazine.
Yes, absolutely.
Resilient Magazine on all social media.
You're amazing, sis.
Thank you.
And I want you to know that many are watching, learning, and grateful and honored to be just having a small portion of the residue of what you have had to go through is now like lessons for people who may not even have the nerve to reach out to you or to say, hey, because trust me, people are learning off your pain, and whether they throwing it back up in your face or not, God is like making it a win-win for you. So thank you for your heart and for your heart of servitude, and for just reaching out into community and exercising your gifts, because it is making a difference.
Thank you. Speaking of gifts, do you still sing?
Do poetry?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you were, it was a little bit of both.
I do. I'm a closet singer though. I don't.
Okay, well, maybe you just opened us up that day.
She done put it out there.
Sorry.
I do. I want to get the nerve to do it publicly one day, but I still do a lot of poetry.
Okay.
There might be something that I may incorporate one day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's how I met you, and it was very good.
I appreciate it. Yeah, still doing the poetry thing, big time. But but I appreciate your time. Thank you for doing the podcast.
Yes, of course.
Yes. But y'all give it up for Miss Teia Acker Moore. Woo!